October 29th, 2019, and just a little update on my neighborhood situation. The tent city is expanding. It's growing. Tent City, Moncton, New Brunswick. What's happening here? Why do we have so many people flowing out onto the streets? Why do we have a campground set up now right in the middle of the city? What's going on here? Something's going on.
This is a report that was issued by CCPA, Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, and the report is called Cost of Poverty in New Brunswick. And I'm just going to read just this opening paragraph here, just because I think it's one of those effective ways to make the scope of this problem hit home for a lot of people. A lot of people think it doesn't affect them because they go about their merry way, they've got a nice little home, they've got their white picket fence, or whatever, what have you. But that is not the case for many people, and there is a cost that is associated with that everyone has to pay. And I'm talking financial cost, because it should go without saying that there's a social cost to this. What we're doing to our society as a whole, as a collective, is abhorrent, it's disgusting. But it is what it is. I just want you to grasp the vastness, the scope of this problem. Right here in my home province, New Brunswick, all the way across this country. And really, in most of the developed world, we're seeing poverty and homelessness exploding. Anyways, the report says, for the New Brunswick government, we estimate that the direct cost of poverty is approximately $500 million per year, and that these costs account for 6.5% of the 2009-10 New Brunswick government budget. This is a significant amount of resources. Healthcare spending alone amounts to $196 million per year, an amount that could be saved or relocated if we lifted the poorest 20% of New Brunswickers out of poverty. For society overall, the cost of poverty is much higher, up to $2 billion per year in New Brunswick. This corresponds to as much as $2,700 per person per year. Thus, when the direct costs to government are added to the broader cost of poverty, this total cost of poverty, $2 billion, is equivalent to 7% of New Brunswick's gross domestic product, the size of its economy. But here's the kicker. This is where it gets good. This is consistent with the cost of poverty in other Canadian provinces. Oh, nothing unusual here. This caustic exercise underlines the urgency that exists for New Brunswick government to act now to reduce poverty.
Baby, now you want to know how I ride, huh? You want to know how the King C ride? Baby, when I ride the best because I come from the West. Baby, let me show you how I ride. When I ride. Wow, baby!
Like me, you may struggle with printers at work, but with advances in technology and the advent of 3D printing, it's now possible to print a building. Known in the trade as additive manufacturing, some say it could change how we live and construct homes. So how does this all work? Basically, a three-dimensional design is created using software. That design is then used to instruct a machine to accurately print or place materials together, layer after layer, until the desired shape is achieved. This kind of tech has many uses, but it gets interesting when it comes to the construction industry. Low-cost 3D homes could even help end homelessness, say advocates.
Could even help end homelessness, say advocates.
Wow, baby! How you like that shit? That's a fine and dandy motherfucker, that ain't it?
This is Rebecca Powers with the Center for Natural Living. We're here in Austin, Texas during South by Southwest Week to visit Icon Home's first ever 3D printed home in the United States. Join us for this tour with CEO Jason so that we can take an inside look at this incredible innovation in home living.
Hi guys, my name is Jason Ballard. Thank you guys so much for being here. 1 year and 1 week ago, we did not even know if this was possible. Because 1 year and 1 week ago, it was a week until South by and we started printing this house. And then by South by, we had completed this house largely as you see it today. And we got a lot of attention for that. I'm sure a lot of you probably first heard of a 3D printed house or maybe heard of Icon.
An estimated 1.2 billion people around the world do not have adequate shelter. But one company is looking to change that with the use of 3D printing. A startup called Icon has released their plan to print a 650 square foot house made of cement in just under a day. Best of all, these homes will only cost $4,000. You know, there's a look at using this around the world. We gave that stat off the top, 1.2 billion people without adequate housing. How does it hold up against various weather conditions?
So concrete is one of the most resilient materials on Earth. And so compared to, I'm from the Gulf Coast of Texas, where hurricanes are a big problem. My childhood home was lost to a hurricane. And 2x4s and drywall are some of the least resilient materials you could possibly build with. And so I think it's an order of magnitude, at least, a better material.
Explain for us, it's just the frame that the 3D printing builds, correct?
So the printer can do the foundation, and then it does a wall system that basically replaces insulation, structure, which you called framing, interior and exterior sheathing. And we think we have some ideas to replace additional systems. But yeah, you're replacing not just one, but 4 or 5 things at least, compared to conventional construction.
Wow, how long does it take?
So our printer running at full speed could have printed that house in about 12 hours.
12 hours to build a, how big of a home?
That one has a footprint of 650 square feet.
And then afterwards is when you put in the electrical and the plumbing or whatever various needs you'd have.
Correct.
So buildings are the #1 user of energy by sector. They're the #2 user of water, unless you consider water used in energy production. Then actually buildings, in theory, could surpass agriculture even in water use. The #1 producer of landfill waste is construction and remodeling. The #1 source of toxic exposure in all of our lives, unless you live in a really smoggy city like Delhi, India, or Beijing, or work in a sulfur mine. The #1 source of toxic exposure is indoors, etc., etc., etc. It's like, holy cow, I don't need to be a field biologist. I need to be working on human shelter if I really want to make a difference. So I spent about the last decade of my life working in sustainable buildings. And to keep the story short, you don't have to work in building very long to realize sustainability is not the only issue that we've got. Affordability is a massive issue. I think the average cost of a home in Austin these days is somewhere around $400,000, if not more. Which means even if I gave everybody here like a 10% off voucher for houses in Austin, which is like, you know, sort of the Oprah Winfrey, like you get a discount and you get a discount and you get a discount on the $440,000 house. Congratulations, that's only $400,000 now, right? And that sort of doesn't change anything for you.
So yeah, it's really tight community. You know, we've all been through hard times, but one thing we have is love and respect.
So Judy here, you know, like she's who I come to for a pep talk or any words of wisdom or, you know, anything, you know, if I need advice on something, because, you know, she's been through it all. She's, you know, been there, done it, and, you know, 10 times over. You know, she's been through the struggle and then gotten back and then been through the struggle again, you know. Yeah. So this is where I look, this is where I search for my wisdom and my, you know, my been there, done that pep talk for sure. And she's always got words, you know, and, you know, when you need some advice, she's got it right there on the spot. Always, you know. You know, she's everybody's mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel so great about it.
She's a sweetheart. Oh, I love her. I tease her all the time.
If you're going through something, there's somebody you can talk to in here that has gone through similar things, or just an open ear to talk to someone. You know, that's one thing that people need is communication. I mean, if you having a problem and you don't talk to someone about it, then the problem can become bigger because you're not discussing your problem with somebody else. And yeah, it's you know, like, I mean, yeah, here it's like it's a tight-knit community. Like you know, people care about people. You know, it's not just you know, we're neighbors. Like, so yeah, it's a good feeling.
I feel honored that people come to me for advice, and I really get to talk to them, and I'm interested in what they have to say and what they ask me, and they are very interested to what I have to say. I am really honored. Yeah, they learn from me too. They learn a lot. They are super.
And now for my next number, I'd like to return to the classics.
I am doing this, and I'm doing it now. You can either get on board and help, and we can do this the right way, or I can do this the hard way, by myself, under the cover of night. You can support me, and we can do this a way that will change the world, or I can do this in a form of protest, and I will go in at night and print a home where you don't want one.
Try to be the last person walking around at night, just to make sure, you know, double check, make sure if there's anything that can be done or anything I can do. And as soon as I come out of the tent in the morning, they're at, you know, whenever I wake up, it's kind of walk around to see if anybody needs anything.
And it's true. I'm telling you, you know, all these people here are cool. You know, they're all real people, and there ain't a whole lot of real people on this earth. You know, and these people are all real people. I'm not kidding you, calling that guy right there spent 37 years down here. 37 years.
I mean, I remember the first week I was here, one night it was cold, it was raining in that, and Ryder was the first one to ask, Lise, are you warm in there? Are you keeping warm? Is your tent leaking? You need anything?
I brought blankets down, Well, that's it. At the end of the day, you have each other. You know, I've learned a lot. Like, I never went to school or studied or took any courses on how to deal with this or how to deal with people. My heart tells me to help. And that's what I follow, my heart.
If there were more people like you weren't there, we wouldn't have a problem.
I wasn't expecting to have this much.
Your hand all the way.
You walk in and you see all these tents, and you know there's people that are hurting that don't have a lot of money and whatnot. But you know there's a sense of like, yeah, this is a place where people like, you know, love and respect each other. And the reason that we're here is because shelters, you have to go to bed at 10 o'clock, and I'm sorry, like 10 o'clock it doesn't work for me. So. And you know, all the laws and whatnot. There's
the benefits of being out here is I have my own space. I do not have to conform to a curfew. I don't have to take somebody's Bible study if I just to stay warm. I am able to be me. That is the positive side. The downside is the fact that it's just not a home.
The way some people look at it in the public are that everybody living here is a bunch of spoiled brats who don't want to stay in the shelters because you just don't want to follow rules. But when you ask these people, well, do you know what the rules of the shelters are? They have no idea. So when you explain to them, you know that you separate couples, you got to be in at a certain time of night. If you're not there, you can be out for 30 days. If you're late, you can be out for 30 days. Most of the public does not understand or know those.
Being in a tent in your own little corner or slice of paradise is either the shelters, which have schedules and in and out at certain times for different reasons, and crowding features as well. So you get to have your own little sanctum in a sense, right? Like, so it's nice.
I don't like a place like where they get mad at you or put you down or yell at you and
kick you out.
Or kick you out for no reason.
You got to do this or
or you go out
in the cold.
Yeah, like you get threatened before you got You can do it without being threatened, but when you're threatened, no one wants to do it. They'd rather be out on.
That brings you right down in the day.
Does.
You know, you could be having a great day, and that doesn't help your.
I don't like it.
I know from all 4 shelters, in the wintertime, you'll never get everybody into a shelter because there were people that were still out in their tents all winter long. But when I talked to those people and I asked them, I said, if I gave you affordable housing right now, would you take it? They were all like, yeah, I'd take it. I just don't want to go stay in a shelter. I don't want to go stay around a bunch of people or whatever their reasons were.
We have the brains, the know-how, the technology, and the feasibility to build an entirely new civilization. The reason we emphasize machines and technology is to free man to pursue the higher things. Machines ought to do the filthy, repetitious, or the boring job. It would take 10 years to change the surface of the earth. To save our environment, our stupidity, our conflict, we've got to reorganize our way of thinking and reconsider our social aims. We must put our mind to this as we do to put a man on the moon.
Either you are with us, or you are with the terrorists.
Books, movies, and music have become digitalized. Cars are becoming computerized. And the smartphones we carry in our pockets are more powerful than supercomputers from the mid-90s. However, one major aspect has largely remained the same, and that is housing. But that will all change with the advent of 3D printing, which will allow houses to be constructed in a fraction of the time and cost compared to current construction methods. The best way to illustrate this is to cover a few of the many companies springing up around the world working hard to implement the technology, starting with Apis Core. Apis Core is based out of Russia, and they made headlines in 2017 when they printed a house in Stupino, Russia in just 24 hours. The house is made out of a concrete mixture that will last for 175 years. And they accomplished this using the incredible Apis Core mobile 3D printer that can be transported right to the construction site. The printer has a stabilization system allowing it to operate without attaching it to anything. And setting it up only takes 30 minutes, and it only takes 2 people to operate. Additionally, you can have 2 or more printers synchronized with each other. And the company eventually wants to be able to cut the cost of construction to a point where the tiny house they built in Russia would cost around $10,000, including windows, doors, electrical wiring, and other bare necessities. The model house has a unique design on purpose to showcase the flexibility of 3D printed houses. With 3D printing, houses will not be limited to rectangular shapes. They'll be able to be any shape. On top of that, houses will be able to be printed from a variety of materials. And this takes us to Wasp. Wasp is a company based out of Italy, and they recently completed a project called Gaia. Gaia is a tiny house constructed at a cost of just $1,000 using a modular printing system called the Crane Wasp. The system consists of a main printer unit that can be assembled in different configurations, allowing for the construction of larger structures. While the system can print structures out of concrete and geopolymers, it can also print from materials found right on the construction site. The foundation is made out of concrete, the roof out of timber, but the 3D printed walls are made out of 25% soil taken from the site, 40% from straw chopped rice, 25% rice husk, and 10% hydraulic lime mixed in a wet pan mill. For a house largely made out of dirt, the inside looks considerably sleek and cozy. And this demonstrates how useful and economic 3D printing can be for creating shelters for disaster relief, or anyone else who wants a quick crash pad for the cost of an iPhone. So 3D printing construction will be fast and cheap, but when and where will we start seeing people actually live in 3D printed houses? The answer is 2019 in the Netherlands, who could use automated construction methods as the country has a shortage of bricklayers, causing high construction costs. And this is something the construction company called Van Wijnen hopes to solve. And they're working with the city of Eindhoven to build the world's first community of 3D printed houses. The community will consist of 5 houses printed out of concrete, and each house will have a progressively more complex architecture than the one before it, building off what the team learned from each one. And the company is approaching the project as if it was a sculpture garden with a futuristic aesthetic. Based off these renderings, the project is going to look incredible once completed, and I can't wait to see it. And it appears the locals are excited as well, since the waitlist has 20 people for the first house alone. Hopefully the project will be successful, and hopefully we will start seeing other projects like this around the world. And as it stands now, it appears housing will finally start to catch up to the rest of the amazing technology in our lives.
And so it's sort of one of those sort of almost unicorn technologies where it's faster, cheaper, better, with more freedom.
Maslow, the renowned American psychologist, identified the pyramid of human needs, at the base of which are the 2 essentials, food and shelter. At the dawn of the 21st century, unfortunately, this is the condition of shelter for nearly 1 billion people in our world. These slums are the breeding ground for disease, crime, illiteracy, and overpopulation. Naturally, governments are after solution. They are after finding ways to change the situation. However, what they're facing is a problem of conventional construction, the current construction methods that we employ. They are generally slow, they are labor intensive and inefficient. If you look around yourself, pretty much everything is made automatically today. Your shoes, your clothes, your home appliances, your car. The only thing we still build by hand are these buildings. Construction is the most hazardous job. It is more dangerous than mining and agriculture. In this country, it kills 10,000 people every year, and there are about 400,000 injuries every year. Eventually, these translate into cost to the society and homeowners. Construction, the way it's done today, is very wasteful and generates a lot of emission. And because of all the different trades that are involved in there and the difficulty of the management process in construction, process is pretty corruption prone.
For me, I feel it's good to give back. There's situations where I can make those situations better for people.
How much do you think they're paying?
Less than that, I don't think 27. I want folks to understand that if it wasn't for this program, that because this apartment is rent stabilized, you could possibly just afford to be living here.
Wait a minute. So paying tenants in the building, the average rent is $900.
Right.
And the city is paying up to $3,000?
Yes.
For the same apartments?
Yes. It seems so ridiculous that you would remove affordable housing stock from working families to house people in crisis and then turn a profit. Why are people looking for a shelter elsewhere when they're already in a dwelling that's rent stabilized? It doesn't make any sense.
Cheech.
Yes.
We're here in Austin.
Yes, we are.
You've been out here 4 years.
Yeah, about that 4 years.
Tell me about it.
Oh, it's kind of an up and down thing. I mean, I came here to restart my career. Took a 3-year hiatus, had a metal break. So I did construction, mostly drain tile, stuff like that, running a jackhammer, you know, working with concrete, just mindless work, you know. They're not making money off you. I mean, they ain't gonna help you, right? And I've been through all of them. I literally went through all of them. I kept the paperwork for 4 years. I got literally
All of them as service providers. Getting disability, and I know disability doesn't cover rent anymore, pretty much anywhere in this country.
No.
They should, homeless service providers, fast track you into housing.
Well, they're doing that now. They're kind of, it's almost like they're trying to cover up something.
Make those situations better for people.
I mean, there's still a lot of people out there. People I know that have been out here for years.
I met somebody today, 34 years. A lot of people, 10 years, 6 years, 20 years. And whenever I share that, homeless service providers always say, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. But they know, they look at the data and they see, you know, that all the people, you know, so they know that there's people out here that long, but when they're faced with it, they...
I was telling somebody this today, this is the funny part, you know, all these people around here, all these people walking around, right? Got the guy who makes $100,000 a year, got the cop who knows how much he fucking makes, you got the city worker over there, man, making minimum wage. You know, everybody, doesn't matter, everybody. You know, all it takes is one frickin' disaster. Man-made, natural, unnatural, okay? And those guys are gonna be standing right next to us out here, right? And this is gonna be the fucked up part. We're gonna sit there and we're gonna look at them. You know, look at the guy that makes $100,000, we'll look at the cop, we'll look at the person. We'll remember everything they freaking did. Remember everything they did, right? Everything.
And we are awake. We do not
And then you know what we're gonna do?
And we do not forget.
We're gonna end up helping them.
I kind of wanted to show you the city that a lot of people are talking about after Donald Trump's latest tweet, pretty much describing this place as a crap hole that is going under. But New York City has recently started to incentivize illegal immigrants, specifically not only giving driver licenses to illegals, but free medical insurance, and also now housing, which has had a very detrimental effect. Haircut. And there's a lot of things that are illegal here. CBD foods, illegal. Fagua, illegal. Flavored vapes, illegal. No smoke. The heavily taxed and regulated cigarettes here that the city is making a killing off of. Ultimately a psyop against flavored vapes that again had nothing to do with public safety, had everything to do with taxation, regulation, the state making money with, of course, a big special interest, which they rely on for a lot of money. Here in New York City, a pack of cigarettes like $15 to $20. $15 to $20, one of the most heavily taxed cigarettes in all of the United States. And that's not just one tax. There's taxes on virtually everything. There's regulations on virtually everything. If you live in New York City, you not only pay federal, you not only pay state, you also pay city taxes. 3 different taxes that you have to pay for the privilege to live here as a frickin' slave. When Donald Trump announced temporary tax reduction on all of America, guess what New York City did? And New York State, guess what they did? They raised taxes so no one in this state, no one in this city would see a difference.
New York, New York. 8.4 million people call the city home.
24 degrees, snowing hard in Central Park, going down to 20 in Midtown. Snowfall 1 to 2 feet.
So they're now saying we could have snow falling as rapidly as 5 inches an hour.
This has been the coldest winter here in 81 years, and it coincides with the grim reality. More people in New York City are homeless today than at any point since the 1930s.
It's a citywide code blue. We've got 3 floors open today.
It's really difficult, especially to find ways to just get through day to day, from finding clothing to finding shelter to finding where you're going to eat.
Tonight is pretty hectic because of the snow outside and there's not a lot of places for us to sleep now, so everybody's kind of coming in.
In just a decade, the number of people living in New York's homeless shelters has nearly doubled.
In just a decade, the number of people living in New York's homeless shelters has nearly doubled,
reaching 60,000 a night last year. It's a homelessness crisis unprecedented in any American city.
What we see today, the homeless that we see, the exodus from the city, families doubling, tripling up, the rent skyrocketing. This has been a crisis that's been cooking for 20 years.
We're on our way to the South Bronx, to New York's only intake center for homeless families. More than 70% of people in the city's shelters are families with children.
More than 70% of people in the city's shelters are families with children.
Homelessness is so complicated. It's not just this guy on the street with that shopping cart. And it isn't just this one person who made the wrong choice or had bad luck.
To apply for shelter, a family must first come to this building, known as PATH. Journalists are not allowed inside.
Journalists are not allowed inside. Journalists are not allowed inside.
We've been here just a few hours and there's been dozens of families coming in. It's been really shocking. It's a lot of young children and a lot of working parents trying to make it. What's it like in there?
It's not what people think. People in there, everyday people. I don't judge people because you never know the situation you'll be in, I have 4 kids. My salary, I get paid $9 an hour. So you do the math.
How did you know about the PATH Center?
I Googled it. I Googled family shelters. Yes, baby. I Googled it.
Is this your first time in the shelter system?
Yeah.
And what's this little guy's name?
This is Josiah Grubb. Say hi, Josiah.
Hi, Josiah. How old are you, Josiah?
3.
So where are you sleeping? Where are you staying these days?
Man, wherever they place you come in, they'll put you in a 10-day placement, and then they'll be like, okay, you either denied or approved. If you have to go.
If you're denied?
If you denied, you have to come back and do the process all over again.
That's what you're doing now.
For the 3rd time.
New York City has an obligation to provide shelter to all individuals who are homeless. Because of that tradition, New York City has the largest public shelter system in the United States.
Patrick Marquis is one of New York's leading advocates for the homeless.
The cost of shelter is exorbitant. The city now spends more than $1 billion a year just in shelter and emergency services for homeless people.
Today, New York operates over 250 homeless shelters. But still, about half of the families who apply for shelter are rejected.
The city has put in place these kind of bureaucratic barriers that wrongfully and unlawfully deny shelter to many needy families.
Come here, Nevi. Help me with your brothers.
We met Melissa Rivera at PATH. She's 25 and has 3 kids.
I go through this every single day. Then I come home. Come here. And then come stay with mommy. Stop crying. She's my little mini me. She looks just like me.
These kids mean everything to you, huh?
Yes, they're my life. I love them dearly. My babies.
Melissa has been homeless for 3 years. She and her kids now sleep in the living room of her grandmother's public housing unit.
This is it right here. I put this couch, I bring it over, put it together with that one, put the blankets on there, and you know.
So you all sleep right here in the
Just
living
me
room?
and my 2 daughters, and then my son right in here.
Yep.
This playpen.
New York's Child Services Agency has told Melissa that she's endangering her kids by keeping them here.
How does your grandmother feel about you living right here in her living room?
She hates it.
Her grandmother is also at risk of losing her housing subsidy. But still, she says the city has denied her shelter application 7 times.
The National Housing Strategy represents a once-in-a-generation $40 billion
vision
of how we can protect the affordability of the current affordable housing stock in Canada, build 4 times as many units as the past decade, repair 3 times as many units as the past decade, and reduce chronic homelessness by 50%.
Hip-hop, rap music in the beginning, or a song like Grandmaster Flash is the message, where basically they were saying, you know, it's like a jungle sometimes. I wonder how I keep from going under. The whole root of what that song was basically saying, look, these are the problems here, you know, and here we are. The problems are still there, and the intensity of the music has built to the no hope, the I don't give up attitude. How did we get from Grandmaster Flash, the message, to where we are now in hip-hop?
Again, you have to be logical. You know, if I know that in this hotel room they have food every day, and I'm knocking on the door every day to eat, and they open the door, let me see the party, let me see like them throwing salami all over I mean, just like throwing food around. They're telling me there's no food in here. You know what I'm saying? Every day. I'm standing outside trying to sing my way in. You know what I'm saying? We are hungry, please let us in. We are hungry, please let us in. After about a week, that song is gonna change to we hungry, we need some food. After 2-3 weeks, it's like, you know, give me the food, breaking out the door. And after a year, then you just like, you know what I'm saying? I'm picking the lock, coming through the door, blasting, you know what I'm saying? It's like you hungry, you reached your level, you don't want any more. We asked 10 years ago. You know, now those people that were asking, they're all dead and in jail. So now what do you think we're gonna do? Ask?
Concrete is the most economic building material. It takes a lot to beat it and to optimize not only the concrete production, but the entire building process. With our 3D concrete printing technology, we can.
Digitalization changes all aspects of the construction process. The interaction of digital planning tools and industrial production opens up unimagined possibilities to optimize this process. Sika has identified this potential early on.
Increasing digitalization will bring us forward in a similar way to how electrification did at the time. Commercially, I see new business models, increased customer satisfaction, simplified visualizations, a productivity boost, and much more.
In this year's budget, we modernized the home buyer's plan, increasing the amount that people can withdraw from their RRSP from $25,000 to $35,000.
The spotlight was on housing affordability in Maple Ridge as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau used a brand new townhouse complex as his backdrop to highlight the federal government's efforts to make it easier for first-time homebuyers to get into the market. Development is booming in the city.
Ethan, my Rice Krispies are top. Man, they're excited.
Yet just a few kilometers away from Monday's announcement sits the Anita Place homeless camp. There are many in the community that feel it's the result of a lack of social housing and that governments from all levels need to step up to help.
It's not for the federal government to determine what is best for a particular neighborhood or a particular community.
You should see what's going on at the bigger firms. I mean, I know all the information. It's true. Goldman, the Lehman Brothers, Merrill, collateralized debt obligations, this internet stock bullshit. I mean, it's a fucking travesty.
But it is up for us to be partners on the plans and projects like people like the mayor have for their communities.
Listening closely as the PM made his address was Maple Ridge Mayor Mike Morden. The city has avoided speaking to the media on the homelessness issue. Even after a series of fires forced an evacuation order at Anita Place.
Yes, we have a lot of people that are out there on the streets. It's primarily a fentanyl problem, and we need to get a hold of that. And we're working our way through a fire order from the Supreme Court that will hopefully end a camp that's untenable for everybody. I guess essentially that's what we're going right now. Yeah.
Help from the federal government is one thing. But right now, the city of Maple Ridge and the provincial government remain at odds over the province's plan to build over 50 supportive housing units on this plot of land on Burnett Street.
We're hoping that we're going to be able to make some steps forward. I've actually asked the Premier for a meeting and hope that I'm able to obtain that to discuss, our needs and how we can work together.
It's also an issue with a small group of protesters who gathered outside the PM's event.
There's 10,000 signatures against modulars or homeless shelters on Burnett. And they're not listening to us. The council has listened to us, and our MLAs are not listening to us. They won't meet with us. They won't look at the signatures. We've been through this for a year. We've changed council, and they've agreed that it shouldn't be there.
I'm meeting with the mayor again. We've met on a few occasions. Trying to find opportunities where we can build seniors housing, where we can build low-income housing, and I think that's part of the process that's out there, right?
We've been through this for a year. We've changed council, and they've agreed that it shouldn't be there.
I'm meeting with the mayor again. We've met on a few occasions. Trying to find opportunities where we can build seniors housing, where we can build low-income housing, and I think that's part of the process that's out there, right? It's not one thing that's going to solve the whole problem, but it's taking targeted approaches to different parts of the problem, and by doing that, you start to alleviate the problem.
In Maple Ridge, Greg Harper, City News.
Seattle's experiencing a human crisis right now.
Portland was known for a mecca of the homeless to come in for the resources, but then the resources ran out, and so you come here and now what?
So the homelessness in San Francisco is out of control.
At what point do the locals here say, we've had enough?
If y'all look around with me, we call this the skyline of oppression.
I feel like they've been talking and saying the same thing for so long. I don't want to see you on camera anymore. I don't want you to write any more articles on how much you care and how much you're trying to change things. I want to see you doing it.
National Housing Strategy represents a once-in-a-generation $40 billion.
Once-in-a-generation $40 billion
vision of how we can protect the affordability of the current affordable housing stock in Canada, build 4 times as many units as the past decade, repair 3 times as many units as the past decade, and reduce chronic homelessness by 50%.
Good evening. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau unveiling some of the details of that ambitious plan just about an hour ago, right behind me here at Lawrence Heights, which is a 100-acre public housing facility in the midst of a major revitalization. Here are a few of the highlights of the PM's announcement. The creation of a new $4 billion benefit to help low-income families with rent. Eligible households will get on average $2,500 a year. Trudeau says they expect 300,000 families to take advantage of this over time. The feds are also committing $20 billion in provincial and territorial housing programs over 12 years. As well, they'll be introducing a plan in April of 2019 to cut chronic homelessness by 50%.
Our government recognizes that housing rights are human rights. Everyone deserves a safe and affordable place to call home, and we will introduce legislation to ensure that future governments continue to take steps to support access to adequate
Food
housing.
every day, and I'm knocking on the door every day to eat, and they open the door, let me see the party, let me see like them throwing salami all over just like
Once in a generation, $40 billion.
like throwing food around. But they're telling me there's no food in here. You know what I'm saying? Every day, I'm standing outside trying to sing my way in. You know what I'm saying? We are hungry, please let us in. We are hungry, please let us in. After about a week, that song is gonna change to we hungry, we need some food. After 2-3 weeks, it's like, give me the food, breaking out the door.
Here in Toronto, this strategy and funding will help us repair our social housing.
And this will keep a roof, a proper and a fit roof over the heads of more than 60,000 Toronto households.
It was simply not sensible
for property taxpayers alone to undertake these repairs, nor was it right not to make the repairs.
The timing of this announcement was carefully planned. It falls on National Housing Day. It was an annual event created back in 1998 when homelessness was declared a national disaster. But this day has also brought out a number of protests, including one this morning at King and Dufferin. Traffic was disrupted at the intersection at about 8 this morning. Residents of Parkdale are protesting a plan of so-called high-end 703-unit condo development for that corner. Residents are worried that the cost of living is being driven up in the traditionally lower-income Parkdale neighborhood, and that is driving poor people out. Now, some other protests were also held today in a number of cities, expressing concern that the majority of this affordable housing funding will not kick in until after the next federal election.
Well, the housing market in Canada is cooling off. But despite that, a new report says most cities will be less affordable in 2019. Now, the Royal Bank says higher interest rates will drive up the cost of carrying a mortgage. In fact, it says the cost of owning a home in the biggest city, Toronto, will hit 79% of median household income. And that's up from 76% in 2018. Now, in the most expensive city in the country, Vancouver, housing prices are expected to fall, but home ownership is still expected to remain at 88% of median income.
What can I expect to get with $300,000?
In the city of Toronto, you'll be lucky to get at least a one-bedroom condo.
This is the cheapest house on the market in Toronto. $298,000 for a semi in Scarborough with a sloping roof.
You'll see the three-piece bathroom to the right that is yet to be completed, still unfinished.
So is most of the house being sold as is. There's very little counter.
Few cabinets.
No ceiling.
No.
No walls.
No walls.
No door, no windows.
No proper door.
And no wall to separate the two so-called bedrooms. This is the largest space. In this entire room. I don't think you'd be able to fit even a twin bed in here.
This is typical of the city of Toronto right now.
Well, in Toronto, an illustration this morning that the rental market is no prettier. You know Shannon Martin. She's been on our show many times, primarily with CBC Toronto now, but it's good to see you here in studio. If you go online to our website, you will find that by far the most viewed column is what Shannon has written. Here's the title: No Fixed Address, How I Became a 32-Year-Old Couch Surfer. It's an incredible story, so thank you for coming in to tell us more about it.
You're welcome. And I mean, I do kind of feel myself blushing a bit because it's a bit embarrassing to admit that. But it's a conversation that I'm having time and time again, anytime I go out with friends. Where do you live? How much are you paying? Are we gonna start commuting? What does our life look like?
Exactly, so you've turned it into this story, and it begins with your own individual experience of a humongous rent increase. Let's start there. When you were paying, back in the day, when you were paying what, $16.50?
Right, so it started at $16.50. I moved in January 2016, great little spot. I could walk to work right downtown in the core. My lease renewal came and I anticipated a bump in rent because It's downtown, you expect it. But when I opened the email, it said $950 a month.
Increase.
Increase.
More than 50%.
Oh, yes. And so I laughed because that's kind of what you do in horror. Sent it right away to a friend of mine who helped me find the apartment in the first place and said, this is a joke, right? Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe this was for the entire year. My rent went from $1,650 to $2,600 a month.
Ouch. And what did you do?
Everyone I talked to said, no way, Shannon, make calls. This is not legal. This can't be. People who had lived in Toronto a lot longer than I had. So I did what we're told to do. I called the tenant and landlord phone number, hotline, explained the situation to the guy. He said, okay, there's forms you can fill out. Here's how you can make a complaint. And then he asked where I lived. And he said 2 words to me, you're screwed.
It's beautiful.
Really?
That's what the operator said to me. Because he said anybody who lives on the waterfront in the downtown core in a newer building, the rent control protection does not apply.
Okay, so that's under 25 years, newer buildings.
Under 25 years. It's this guideline. Buildings newer that were built after 1991, rather, have no rent protection in the city of Toronto.
So because they can, and we talked about what the housing, to buy a home, it's prohibitive for most people.
What can I expect to get with $300,000?
If they can get it, they'll charge it?
They can, absolutely. And I certainly know that my example is an extreme. I don't think this is happening a lot, but a lot of people are seeing their rent go up 30%. And somebody said to me, why don't you try to negotiate? Maybe they'll only increase it $300 a month. But at $300 a month, I still can't afford that. I am already paying 60% of my paycheck to put a roof over my head. And that's just the reality of living in Toronto. So it started a conversation in our newsroom. As I mentioned, a lot of us are talking about it. So we said, let's look deeper into this. Let's look deeper into this.
Once in a generation, $40 billion.
And start a conversation with the decision makers in the city of Toronto.
And with people to share their experiences. Before I get to that, though, what have you decided to do?
I'm couch surfing.
What can I expect to get with $300,000?
A company from Shanghai recently 3D printed 2 gorgeous Chinese courtyards in just a week. Standing in an industrial park in East China's Suzhou city, the 2 courtyards, inspired by the classical gardens of Suzhou, cover about 80 square meters and 130 square meters respectively. The company used many different printers to print the walls and various components of the architecture, taking leftover construction materials, including waste and mine tailings as the materials, and then assembled all the parts together into the courtyards. As for the walls, a giant printer was used to print them layer by layer. Insulation can be added to the wall cavities.
This courtyard is about 80 square meters. The floors, walls, and the roofs were all 3D printed. It's very environmentally friendly. It used construction waste to make the walls. This was made of gypsum from a power plant.
The internal decorations were also 3D printed. Framed artwork in the rooms and the table and chairs in the yard blend quite well with the entire structure. What's more amazing is the external walls, where people can grow flowers and vegetables in the spaces.
The highlight is that we have installed a water recycling system inside the external walls. It collects rainwater, which then drips down layer by layer inside to water the plants. A smartphone app allows you to control the watering time.
Using waste material and mine tailings is quite cost-effective. It cost about 400,000 yuan, or about $60,000 US to make a courtyard like this.
We reuse this waste concrete, grinding it up to make the new raw materials for the printers.
The company made headlines in 2014 when it built 10 3D printed houses in about 24 hours in Shanghai. In 2015, Ma and his team printed a 1,000 square meter villa. They invented many of the 3D printers themselves.
We are calling this series No Fixed Address, and Shannon Martin is leading it for us. She's back with us now, along with Bahar Shadpour, who works with the Advocacy Centre for Tenants Ontario. She's been following the rental market closely for years now. Recently spent months trying to find an affordable rental. Now, Bahar, we're going to start with you. Tell us about your search. You should be an expert at this.
Yeah. Well, it actually took me 4 months to find a place.
And I was lucky to actually have family and friends to help me out while I was looking. But it was honestly one of the hardest endeavors I've taken.
Okay, and you work with tenants. They come to you with their stories. What are you hearing at your advocacy group about this?
Well, the vacancy rate in Toronto is really low, and so a lot of people are just kind of desperate to find a place that they can afford, and I think affordability is the main problem here. A lot of people are spending more than 50% of their income on housing, and a lot of people that are low-income folks, whether they're students, seniors, people on OW or ODSP, they are really finding it difficult to not only find a place, but they're trying to hold on to their current rental units. And there's a lot of evictions that are happening in the city. And so at the Advocacy Centre for Tenants Ontario, what we do is we try to stop those evictions, because we know once you're out of that unit,
hard to get back in anywhere.
Exactly, and you're being displaced, right? And people
Shannon,
don't want to.
We want to bring you into this conversation too. You've been hearing from people online about this pretty much all day from you put your story out there this morning.
Right, my story was focusing on the condo apartments, so the newer builds, but we also know people are seeing rent increases much higher than are set out by the province in older buildings. And so we heard from Allison B, and she said, my husband and I are both educators. We're in our early 30s. We find housing frustrating. They make an income of close to $100,000, but say finding a house is incredibly hard. They were spending $1,800 a month, but they were living in a place that was falling apart. They were having battles with landlords. So this really touches on something that you guys encounter as well. It's not just the newer buildings that are seeing rent increases, it's older buildings.
Yes, it is, and that's part of the, so there are two sets of class of tenants in Ontario. So those sets of class of tenants in Ontario. So those that are protected, fully protected by the rent guidelines. And then there are those that are not protected, which is that they fall under the 1991 exemption. So, which is basically...
Talk about that and what your organization is doing work around that exemption.
Definitely. So this is a top priority for us. In the past 15 years, every time we have met with the Minister of Housing, we have brought this up. And basically what it is it's rent regulation. It does not apply to any building that was occupied after November 1st, 1991. And so, the rent can increase at any price after the end of lease, or there could be no cause evictions for those tenants.
And just in case people missed your story, that happened to you, Shannon, and it was $1,000 basically difference after the time was up.
Hold it. And it's about here. The Social Development Office in Miramichi. Social development. People that get screwed by the system, that can't find a job, voila, that's on the Irving blacklist, or other issues, they're not in the clique or whatever, they can't get a job, so they end up on welfare. I didn't want to end up on welfare, but that's the way it is. And there's nothing I could do. There's no human rights. There is nothing for people that's being discriminated against.
Make those situations better for people.
Social development. If a person walks in here and that's homeless, guess what they do? I'll give you 2 seconds. They give you a bus ticket to Moncton. So, you're homeless. A lot of people are one paycheck away from being homeless. And you happen to, something happens, You walk in there, and they say, no problem. We'll give you a ticket to Milton.
We have the brains, the know-how, the technology, and the feasibility to build an entirely new civilization. The reason we emphasize machines and technology is to free man to pursue the higher things. Machines ought to do the filthy, repetitious, or the boring jobs. It would take 10 years to change the surface of the earth. To save our environment, our stupidity, our conflict, we've got to reorganize our way of thinking and reconsider our social aims.
Exactly 3 years ago, we introduced FarmBot Genesis, humanity's first open-source CNC farming machine. Since then, we've manufactured and shipped over 1,000 kits to early adopters in more than 65 countries. Together with our community, we've refined this technology, and now we're ready to bring FarmBot to the masses. Say hello to FarmBot Express and Express XL, the first FarmBots designed and built for everyone. FarmBot Express grows food for you by taking care of your garden 24/7. It precisely sows seeds according to your desired layout, and then waters each plant individually to take care of every plant perfectly. It can grow many crops at once and even accommodates large plants spreading over the front and back of the bed. Covering 4 times the area, Express XL is big enough to grow veggies for your whole family. Both of these new FarmBots come 95% pre-assembled in the box, so you can get set up in just 1 hour. Simply follow the online instructions to complete the assembly, mount FarmBot onto your raised bed, and plug it in. Robotic gardening has never been this easy. Using the FarmBot web app, you can monitor your garden and plan your growing season from anywhere. Our custom sequence editor now supports variables, empowering you with complete freedom and control over how your FarmBot works. Meanwhile, the drag and drop farm designer offers a game-like experience that is quick, intuitive, and fun to use. With built-in data for hundreds of the most common garden veggies, you'll be guided through designing an optimal layout in no time. What's more, with the Saved Gardens feature, you're just 1 click away from the next growing season and the next and the next. Using the onboard camera and advanced computer vision software, FarmBot can scan your garden multiple times a day, find weeds as soon as they emerge, and then remove them within minutes of being detected. FarmBot Express is 1.2 meters wide and 3 meters in length, perfect for the outdoor classroom, research lab, or small backyard. At 2.4 meters wide and 6 meters in length, Express XL is large enough to make fresh food the centerpiece of your home or school. Best of all, both of these devices are by far our most affordable FarmBots ever, and as always, they're 100% open source. All of our documentation, 3D CAD models, software, and data is free for anyone to use for any purpose.
Free for anyone to use for any purpose. For any purpose.
That's because we're committed to building not only a technology that can help feed the world, but a community that is empowered to help out as well. So check out our website to learn more and place your pre-order for FarmBot Express and Express XL today. Thank you.
I like to return to the classics.
Our first guest is awesome. From the City of Moncton, the Immigration Strategy Officer, Desanjali Reddy Kalala. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm very good, very excited. Good. Really excited tonight. So, Immigration Strategy Officer. Tell us all about that. What exactly does your day look like?
So I do a variety of things with the City of Moncton. I guess one of the main pillars would be to work with immigrant entrepreneurs that are looking to start businesses here in Moncton. So we have a wide variety of people that are now moving to our community, and so it's my role to work with our economic development team to help provide them any services they need.
You're homeless. A lot of people are one paycheck away from being homeless. And you happen to something happens. You walk in there and they say no problem. We'll give you a ticket to Moncton.